Fikile Mbalula, who will walk you through the much asked about question in relation to the status of the former president of the ANC, a member of the ANC. Over to you, SG.
Thank you very much, Matlengi, our national spokesperson of the ANC and members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Just to explain a few points to you in relation to the matter of MK Party and President Jacob Zuma, former President Jacob Zuma. You will know that since the announcement of the party, the ANC decided that it will note the announcement made by the former president of the ANC in the country, and that at an appropriate time, the ANC will respond to that development led by former president. Subsequent to that, we held a meeting of the National Executive Committee in Bombela to finalize the January 8 preparations and the January 8 statement. And we did make it clear even then that the National Executive Committee will, after January 8 celebration, meet as it process matters related to many other issues. Among others, we will then deal with the issue of MK Party, as well as the standing of President Jacob Zuma in the ANC post the major announcement that he made on the 16th of December. So there has never been a formal position of the ANC on President Zuma and MK Party. Of course, there have been responses across the board, but from the National Executive Committee of the ANC, there's not been any response to this development. The National Executive Committee of the ANC, in its regular meeting, has laid the matter to rest. And today we will communicate the decision of the National Executive Committee in relation to this matter. The NEC of the ANC, in a statement of the National Executive Committee of the ANC on the membership of Jacob Zuma, 29 January 2024. The NEC took note of the announcement by former ANC President Jacob Zuma on 16 December 2023. He announced that he will be campaigning for another political party and further launched a series of vitriolic attacks against the ANC and its leadership. This development occurs in a context where anti-transformation forces are converging to stop the march towards a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous country that truly belongs to all. Part of the anti-transformation tactics are to encourage rebel breakaway groupings to erode the support base of the African National Congress. Some of these parties masquerade as more radical than the ANC, but their revolutionary sounding rhetoric cannot hide the reality that they have common cause with the forces opposing transformation. The shared goal of all these forces is to deprive the ANC of the ability to use state power to effect change. The formation of MK Party is not an accident. It is a deliberate attempt to use the proud history of armed struggle against the apartheid regime to lend credibility to what is a blatantly counter-revolutionary agenda. It was the sacred ground rule of uMkhonto Wesizwe, the glorious People's Army, which all its members were taught that this army was established to advance the political goals of the African National Congress. It implemented what the ANC-NEC instructed it to do. The war against poverty, inequality, and unemployment remains the primary objective of our transformation struggle. At this point in the national democratic revolution, there is no need to advance this program through the opportunistic use of military symbolism. The challenges of our struggle for a better life for all are difficult and diverse and require honest and dedicated leaders. To suggest that the solutions are easy is dishonest and smacks of populist self-gratification. At its last two national conferences, the ANC vowed to renew itself to more effectively address society's challenges and conduct its affairs in line with its core values. The ANC is committed to developing and, where necessary, correcting its members and leaders. However, as renewal gains momentum, Zuma and others whose conduct is in conflict with our values and principles will find themselves outside the African National Congress. The JZ Party project aims to cast doubt on our entire constitutional democracy. The ANC categorically rejects the dangerous suggestion that our electoral system can and will be manipulated. The Independent Electoral Committee is one of the most trusted public institutions. The entire voting process and counting process is monitored by party agents from all competing parties and international observers who have repeatedly declared our elections to be free and fair. The people of South Africa and the ANC will not allow a Renamo UNITA project in our country to discredit democratic outcomes that do not favor them and use violence against the people as a bargaining tool. This is the fundamental danger of the JZ project. It targets extremist instincts in our body politic and riles up a political base to foment social unrest. His actions reinforces the work of the primary right-wing opponents of the National Democratic Revolution. In this regard, in assuming this reactionary public posture, former President Zuma is actively asserting himself as the figurehead of counter-revolution in South Africa. Former President Jacob Zuma is actively impugning the integrity of the ANC and campaigning to dislodge the ANC from power, while claiming that he has not terminated his membership. This conduct is irreconcilable with the spirit of organizational discipline and letter of the ANC Constitution. This chain of events requires the organization to invoke measures to protect and preserve its integrity and prevent further damage to its reputation. Pursuant to this, the National Executive Committee, during its ordinary meeting held from 26 to 29 January 2024, resolve to invoke Rule 25.60 of the ANC Constitution. I quote, "If justifiable exceptional circumstances warrant an immediate decision of temporary suspension of a member without eliciting the comment or response of such member as contemplated above, the National Executive Committee, the National Working Committee, the Provincial Executive Committee, the Provincial Working Committee, as the case may be, may summarily suspend such member," close quote. The NEC concluded that exceptional circumstances exist to justify and warrant an immediate decision to suspend former ANC President Jacob Zuma in line with Rule 25.60 as stated above. The ANC is willing, able and ready to defend the gains of freedom and our constitutional democracy. Accordingly, we call on ANC members, our alliance partners, and all South Africans to reject the agenda of the JZ Party project and all other divisive, anti-transformation and counter-revolutionary projects aimed at derailing the forward march to a national democratic society. To this end, in conclusion, we have as well affirmed the action taken already by the organization to challenge the existence of this MK party as it is the symbol of the liberation movement led by the African National Congress, and at the same time the deregistration of this party in the Electoral Court of South Africa. And that has been submitted. And two, we have also challenged from the point of view of the trademark of uMkhonto Wesizwe, the existence of this party, as uMkhonto Wesizwe is the trademark of the African National Congress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, SG. I will, at this point, turn to members of the media. And it's a big room, so I'm going to start that side, start here at the beginning. News 24. Yes, and followed by Business Day. It was News 24, but proceed, Newsroom. It's okay. It's okay.
You're calling from Newsroom Africa. SG, you spoke about the rule that the ANC has, the ANC has invoked to suspend the former president. It's still unclear why then, if it's so clear in the rules of the ANC that if an individual takes the actions that the former president did, can be suspended, why the ANC has taken so long to suspend him. Has this not created a lot of damage to the party itself, allowing him to make so many actions and basically suggest that the ANC's current leadership is weak and does not want to take a stand against him? Thank you.
Very much. News 24.
I just want to ask, possibly, between the time that the national chairperson said that the ANC doesn't want to be distracted, he might want to do this after the elections, what changed between then and now? Also, with the suspension and not expulsion, which I understand would require a disciplinary process, etc., and I understand the former president would have been given a chance to respond. With the ANC, is there an appetite to get to sit down with him, or is it just regardless where that's concerned?
Afternoon, SG. It's Tanya Michael from Business Day. So the ANC in Etabwini in December undertook exercise to see which members had deflected to the MK party? Would this be scaled up to a national level, and will this be followed up with
Who's
national
that?
suspension
Integrity.
as well?
No, the
and
journalist.
Zuma is known to have helped the ANC a lot in KZN in terms of votes and the elections that side. Do you think now with the suspension of the former president, the ANC is set to lose votes that side, because he does enjoy a large supporter base in his home province? Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I proceed? This row, I don't see anyone here, so I'll proceed and go here. But you're standing, Ulokums. Let's start with you because you're standing, and then I'll come to Sabgelo, and then we'll then have one first round. We'll definitely have a second round. Yes,
thank you very much. My name is uMkhonto from ANC. I just want to understand whether, as the ANC, you were caught by surprise when Mr. Zuma associated himself with this party on the 16th of December publicly, or had you always been aware of his activities leading to the 16th? But secondly, I would like to understand, because the fact that as the NWC and the NEC, you have had to sit and discuss this matter of Mr. Jacob Zuma formally. And my little understanding is that if an ordinary member were to transgress and the provincial secretary or even you as the SG can just decide to invoke certain provisions of Rule 25 and charge them. In this case, have you considered, as part of your discussions, perhaps given the fact that you have created an opportunity to discuss it formally, have you considered an option of engaging him, since he's always been saying that he remained a member of the ANC, to try and check out perhaps if you can meet each other halfway in terms of his grievances, or the decision was that he is incorrigible, there's no way he can be convinced of this?
Thanks. I'll end off with SABC, and then we'll start with the next round once the SG has responded.
Sam Kelly Marcelo from the SABC. Mr. Marula, just clarity. Is it temporarily suspended, or is it summarily suspended as a member of the ANC? Clarity on that, sir. And then secondly, on the issue of communication with him, what is the communication that you have with the former president? Does he have to write back to you after a number of days on why he should not be suspended, or provide reasons why he's contravened Rule 25 of the ANC Constitution? What is the process then going forth from now? Is he going to appear before the NDC? What happens now with this suspension that you have brought upon him? And then lastly, there was some within your reports that you are getting within your ANC that were pushing for the extreme, that he must be summarily expelled at this point in time. Why didn't you go for the harshest punitive measure of an immediate expulsion? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. G.
Thank you very much. Newsroom, why the ANC takes so long? It is not long. I mean, former President Zuma announced his actions on the 16th of December. We were definitely not going to convene an NEC meeting for that, because when somebody is disruptive, that's what they do. So what you do, you rally your forces, you observe the activities and the determination of an individual to get somewhere with what they have announced. We have seen people who have announced and made clarion calls and took decisions only to find that they are not firm. And secondly, you've got to put across the view that says President Zuma is almost a stalwart. He's old in the ANC. So when he arrived at that particular decision, you subject that to a thought process. And in this instance, the options of engagement equally are not closed. So that they've been pursued over time, and they've proven to be worthless and not wielding any result, as he was in no position to engage with us as leadership. So it is not long. We are now in January end. A structure of the ANC have duly met and taken a decision. And that is not long. And President Zuma, I'm sure, between that decision and today, he has had more than 40 rallies in different areas. That shows his determination to leave the ANC, meaning forward ever, backward never. And then with one of the rallies in KwaXimba yesterday. So that tells you that that person is not in a frame of mind of looking in a different direction. It is an act of disruption and determination to get to where they want to get to. So it's not long. It's a question of taking the right decision at the right time and giving people the benefit of doubt in whatever that they do. Deservedly so, because they've served this organization for the longest of time. And you can't run away from the fact that when that happened, others dismissed it as an April Fool. And it was not. We knew that this thing has been in the works, and we knew that MK will be announced on the 16th. And because the first initiative to try and form this party was thwarted off, you will see in our papers in court, it did not succeed. So it was a shock to us that it succeeded, despite the submissions we made. But that is a matter for the courts to decide, the electoral court. But in this particular instance, you know, when something you observe and then you come across it, you think that, no, it can't happen. But eventually it does happen. And the way we have known about it, and then it was confirmed on the 16th, not by Dalai Lama approach, but by Jacob Zuma himself. He didn't send somebody to announce it on his behalf. He owned it up. But because it's a disruptive, it has to have complications. I'm still in and a member of the ANC. So that is the disruption element of it that it has come with. So I'm not leaving. I'm challenging the status quo, but in a different way, knowing very well that the ANC has got a constitution, it has got a following, it has got membership. There's no self-respecting party that runs its own affairs without rules and without discipline. He knows that very well. So it's an act of being disruptive to terrorize the ANC membership with a decision. And when everybody is confused, and then you deal with the party, bringing it down to the ground. And between then and now, you will see that the mobilization has been going hard on the ground, but equally, we're monitoring the response, where it is, the pockets of it, and all of that. So you're not trailing the party. So you do what you're supposed to do as the ANC. The shocker was COPE. This act is not a shocker because it was to be expected, because you have had a big group of people who have rallied behind President Zuma whilst they were within the ANC and have vowed not to work for our party. And some of them even could not make it to the power structures of leadership in the ANC. And they've been hanging there without an option. And so now that the MK party is announced, we see them mushrooming there. And others have gone to the EFF and all of that. So people were denouncing the party on daily basis. On daily basis. So these are not new faces. They call themselves names within the party. RT forces, all of that. It has gone that direction. So each one of them who leaves going that direction is not a shocker that these people indeed were within our movement and the party and not working within the rules of the party or promoting the brand ANC, but working to implode the ANC from within. So it's not a shock. It is a, the evolution of what could lead to a tsunami is what was being planned for us here. And it has not come that way because our structures are resilient, they are firm, that we live with the ANC. We are members of the ANC, we live within the ANC, and we defend the African National Congress. So we have not taken long. We just gave an opportunity for the party structures to pronounce themselves on the matter and to reflect on this development. News 24, what changed? In terms of our decision, there is no 48 hours given to anyone. I've seen you writing in the papers that we're going to give him 48 hours. Rule 25.60 doesn't talk to 48 hours. You are summarily or temporarily combined, Sabelo, Samkel, not dismissed, suspended. You can make your case, whatever you can, but if we have come to a conclusion, like I wish to quote again, if it is justifiable, exceptional circumstances that warrant an immediate decision of temporary suspension of a member without eliciting comment or a response of such member as contemplated, you can take that decision. And former President Zuma has made that case beyond reasonable doubt, that there's no turning back there. If somebody says, I don't want to be party to you, I want to overthrow you, I don't believe in your leadership, I believe in my own ANC, that is not yours. So this ANC that has got a constitution, that has got rules, that has got a culture, has now come to this conclusion that that is irreversible. You don't solicit a response from a person who on a daily basis tells you that I don't want you. And even before that, you try to engage, the doors are closed. And so we did nothing to President Zuma, and his concerns that he shares with everybody about this leadership, he has not shared with us formally as a leadership of the ANC, despite efforts on our part to engage with him. Because those efforts have been there since from the national conference. We have asked to see him, to engage with him, to understand his frame of mind, his concerns, and so on. But we didn't get that opportunity. So if somebody doesn't want to give an opportunity to engage, there's nothing you can do. And finally, they arrive at the decision that they have arrived at. We are leadership. We've got to lead the organization and provide leadership. There is no 48 hours provision in terms of the rule that we have resolved on as the National Executive Committee. Zuma support and what he could do in terms of rallying the people behind his agenda stand to be seen on the ground. The ANC has got the responsibility not to answer Jacob Zuma and talk about Zuma every day. He's got that obligation on his part. We are the incumbent. South Africa knows Jacob Zuma, what he has been when he was given an opportunity. The ANC knows Jacob Zuma. And from here onwards, we will rebut some of the distortions that are made in relation to the things that have been raised in the public discourse. To an extent that it's a distortion that can be believed by the people. Because many lies repeated many times tend to become the truth. I'm a victim. I'm under attack. This leadership is a sellout leadership. That will then be believed by the people if it is not corrected. Obviously, most of the things that President Zuma have said about ANC, they are a reflection on him more than the party itself. They are a reflection on President Zuma opportunity to lead the ANC for 9 years and what he has done in that 9 years. They are a reflection on him more than the party. And we don't say in that 9 years there were no good efforts that were exerted on the transformation agenda. But that 9 years was largely characterized by negative, which is what we're getting out of now in terms of recovery. Can it be the economy? Can it be the social transformation agenda? Can it be even the questions about the image we have gained as a party and all of that? We have gone through the path of state capture, all of it, and we're addressing the side effects of it right now, simply because it arose during that period. So the leadership of the ANC have had to take responsibility from the point of view of the conference to correct those anomalies and defects in the party political system and deal with all those issues. Were we caught by surprise? Option of engaging, Muloko. Look, you know, when you see something unfolding, an old person like that arriving at the decision to leave the ANC the way President Zuma has left, of course, it's a shock. It's a disappointment to many members of the ANC. As and when people analyzed and thought about things and all of that, you don't associate the person of President Zuma's stature in the party, the stalwart, the veteran, with action like those. Moreover, that person has been a president, former of the country, and a former president of the ANC. It has never happened. We never had any president of the ANC who left us. We did have prominent members who left the ANC. Some, even before we were unbanned, were dismissed from the party for failing on party discipline. We can mention. But in the new dispensation, we have not had somebody of President Zuma's caliber and stature leaving the party the way he has done. So that's why also there is doubt in him living wholly and then saying, part of me is still here. You know, even Umntwana kaPhindangene was saying, I want my membership back. Because you remember where you come from. So, and for all the years, you have been black, green, and gold. And then in the age that you reach in your life, you decide to leave everything else, to go for something new altogether. So obviously it's a shock, it's a surprise, which the organization has got to deal with. A disappointment to many younger comrades who supported him, even in difficult times, and who believed that he needed to be supported because there was a belief that something wrong had actually happened in terms of how some of the matters that he was facing personally. But nonetheless, at the end, he has arrived at that conclusion, and everybody has got to cut their losses and say, it is done. Let's go our different direction. We will live with the ANC, not with Jacob Zuma. So that's what has actually happened. Options of engagement, anybody gets to be engaged. The options of engagement with President Zuma, he closed them down himself. And you can see in terms of his posture and his determination on a daily basis. So in terms of engaging him to dissuade him from a decision that endangered the project of the National Democratic Revolution, it's quite clear that there was no turning back in that regard from his side. And despite our efforts to try to reach out in many ways, it's quite clear that the doors were closed for us to engage with him. I've answered Samkelo in terms of temporary or summarily expulsion. Look, expulsion is a last resort. Even DCs don't start with expelling somebody. Both in terms of the principles of natural justice and at the same time, your own constitution does not provide for summary expulsion of a person without a due process. So a due process is given. And in this instance, President Zuma, former President Zuma, is no longer a member. His membership of the ANC is suspended till otherwise. And as a result, if expulsion has to come, it will be a result of the process. So even those who are expelled, that's where it didn't start. They themselves went down the path and accepted that they can go, and they did not appeal and fought for their membership. Others did, others did not. But that's not where we start. It's the end in itself. But when you deal with a member who is erratic, who is disruptive, a member who has taken a decision to compromise the project of the National Democratic Revolution, of which we are prepared even today to lay our lives, for, then you can't be thinking about that person's individual's gratification. You think about the organization and the National Democratic Revolution of what we stand for. It's no longer about Jacob Zuma. It's about the party. It's about what the ANC stand for and what this individual seeks to do. And I don't want to delve too much, because when somebody says I can save the party by working with enemies of the ANC, you can analyze for yourself what kind of a strategic perspective is that? Coming from a person who calls himself a commissar, a former intelligence officer, a political strategist, and then says that at the twilight of his time, with all his political consciousness amassed together, that person says, with all of this, I believe I can save the ANC by working with its enemies and opponents and save it back. It's not being disruptive. You are putting the project in danger for yourself. You don't care. Yes, you will have followers, but the danger you would have done for the sake of yourself and everybody else, you will see it in the next life. We who are still around, we've got an obligation, the responsibility to defend the revolution. We don't blame those who follow, because it is a question of love and feelings for them. They love Jacob Zuma, and they feel this and that about Jacob Zuma. But they see it narrowly, that they will gain 2/3 majority. Over a period of time, this party will have 2/3 majority. That's what they preach. We never had 2/3 majority since Mbeki. Now a new party within a couple of months will have 2/3 majority. It's not a miracle. I mean, it is something to be seen by all, happening in our lifetime. So in this particular instance, the support of that individual will be gauged by what happens in this campaign of the election. But at the end of the day, to us, we cannot put up with this, because we see it very clear. Where you then say, these ones are so bad, I'm even prepared to start from scratch and take their trademark and everything else and go and work with their opponents, including their enemies, because an enemy does not come with a straight face. It comes in different forms. So it can support you without you seeing it. And he knows, he has been around, he knows how counter-revolution functions. Now, to get Jacob Zuma in 2024 to be defined by us as a classical case of counter-revolution, it's something that you could have never imagined, because this is what counter-revolution does. This is what it does. It functions, operates, and maneuvers exactly in this manner. And this is a classical case. We can give you cases here in Southern Africa. We can tell you what happened in Mozambique. We can tell you what is happening in Namibia. We can tell you what is happening in Tanzania. We can tell you what is happening in Zimbabwe, where you have witnessed something of this nature. We can tell you what happened in Latin America. And you can't even define Jacob Zuma as a Lula moment. The Lula moment in the context of Brazil, it is not. And so on. So, or you look at it in the context of UMNO in Malaysia, in this particular instance. You can't look at it in that context. I think scholars and kids will write books about this moment and what it came to represent. And those who follow, revolutions that have unfolded, whether those revolutions fold and all of that, this will be an example in that political analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, SG. I am going to try and ask colleagues to keep the questions brief. I still see a number of hands. I will start with colleagues who have not done my time.
Listening there to the ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula, and the last piece of what he was saying certainly speaks to the former president's state of mind, erratic, disruptive, compromising the national democratic revolution of the ANC. It sounds like, an intimation of is Mr. Jacob Zuma's mind stable? Is what he's saying.
And even saying that he's asserting himself as a figure of counter-revolution in South Africa. Those are some of the sentiments there, and saying that the formation of the MK party is not by accident. And he says that it seeks to make credible a party that is basically engaging in counter-revolutionary acts. That's according to the Secretary General of the ANC there.
And the big headline that he is the former president summarily suspended, and according to the ANC's own constitution, there isn't such a concept of having 48 hours to respond, and that the former president can fight for his place in the party, as have other comrades who have been expelled.